Action.
Well, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been watching I've Got a Testimony, and we are sitting here with both Eddie and Gail. Gail, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, so delighted. Let me tell you, we're talking about love, fellowship, relationship, friendships, you name it, marriages on a whole, and we're just so excited for what we've heard thus far from Eddie, and we're going to entertain Gail just in giving us some more insight on what it takes to keep the relationship fresh. I want to ask you guys right off the bat, the first question that I have is, how and where and when, if you can recall, did you first meet? Whichever one of you wants to take that question.
Okay, where we met was actually the barbershop salon.
Barbershop.
Now,
okay, I'll leave that one alone. Okay.
It's a combination barbershop salon. She was where she gets her hair done, and where I used to get my hair cut. I actually saw her a long time before she ever saw me. Wow. And I used to ask my barber all the time, who is that young lady right there? And he would say, oh, that's Gail. Oh, that's Gail. Wow. I mean, and I would just, I would see her all the time. Every time I would go in, and I would just watch her. I would see how she carried herself, and I just noticed some things about her, her confidence, and how she was meek and quiet. You know, sometimes you have women in the salon who they're real rowdy and boisterous and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, she was just different. I could tell that she was different. It was something, one of the things that attracted me to her. Again, I asked my barber, you know, who was that woman? He said, that's Gail. So he said, you want me to introduce you to her? I said, yeah. Yeah, introduce me to her. So he said, okay, give me your number, and I'll give her your number. But that happened like 2 or 3 times, and we just kept missing. I'm like, okay, did you did you give her the number? He's like, oh man, you know what? I forgot to give it to her last time. You know, I asked him like that 2 or 3 times. So then again, he said, okay, give it to me again, and I'm gonna give it to her. So he finally gave it to her, and you know, I don't know if I ended up calling her or she ended up calling me, but we talked a few times, and that's how it all began.
Now, is that how it actually all went?
Well, yeah, it did.
Now, had you all talked before?
Never.
Never.
We had never talked. Matter of fact, I was in the salon one day, and I was not saved at the time, and I was sitting.
Of us were.
Yeah, we wasn't saved, and I was sitting up under the dryer, just meditating, and on the right side of me is a window, and I just so happened felt a wind blow by me, and I did not understand. The only thing I saw was this shadow. Didn't see a body, didn't see anything. It was just a shadow. And I'm like, what was that? And I went down the hall and I asked Marvin, I said, did anybody come out of this room? And he said, yeah, Eddie came out of the room. I'm like, wow. I said, I need to speak to that individual. I said, I just need to see this individual. Not knowing that, you know, I had just prayed and said, God, you know, I want a good man in my life, you know. And after about 3 months, he supposed to have gave Eddie my number. It never happened. So finally it happened. I was home on vacation, and he finally called me. And my son said, Mom, Eddie on the phone. I had one of the biggest smiles on my face, you know. And we end up talking, and we met each other about a week later, sitting up under the dryer. And here he comes walking, you know, down the hall, and looked at me and said, you know, I'm Eddie. You know, and I mean, it's a lot behind more than that, and it's been going ever since. You know, so.
Now, you know, I'm sure someone is watching and saying probably the barber wanted something to take place between him and, you know, we just leave that alone for the delay in the 3 months of passing on the number. But let me ask you this: how do you keep balance now? Now you're in ministry and you're working and you've got family. How do you keep balance?
Well, one thing that we've discovered, and this was one of the things that we learned through our spiritual father, is we have a regular date night. On Friday night, we entertain each other. We push everything else aside. We don't entertain all of these phone calls, And there's nothing about ministry on that night. We set that night aside for just us, whether we just want to sit in the bed and talk, whether we want to rent a movie and watch a movie, or whether we just want to be quiet, you know, enjoy each other's presence. That's one of the things we do. Another thing we do is we take time now to take vacations together. You know, because you understand, being in ministry, there comes a time when you just need to get away from everyone.
That's a good point.
You know, you just need to disconnect. You need to get out of the environment, go to a place where no one knows you. Have to worry about no phone calls,
that's right.
no mother calling, no father calling, no sisters, nobody calling saying, you know, well, I'm having a problem in my marriage. No, none of that. Just get away. And I'll tell you, something interesting happened. We were talking about it last night. A couple of years ago when we took a vacation, and this was the first time I really noticed it. It was like it took her back to her childhood. She was just like a little girl. Once she disconnected from everything, and it was just us together. You know, it was a time when we could just become even more intimate, where we could just share each other, where we could talk, where we could, you know, lay in the bed till 12 if we wanted to, you know, and get up and cook breakfast and you know, just enjoy each other. And I saw a whole different side of her, you know, during that vacation. And I'm like, okay, God, I see what you're showing me right now. You know, you're showing me that this is a time for us to become more intimate. You know, we use the...
that was the key word, enjoy? Okay.
We yes. Okay. One thing we use is, you know, in our ministry, we always say in our It Takes 3 marriage class, intimacy means intimacy.
Wow, yes,
you know, and this was the thing that God showed me during this time. Okay, this is the time that you can get into her and she can get into you. So when you go back and re-engage and reconnect to the ministry, you know, you're ready to, again, pour in a way that God would have you to, because now you've been refreshed not only by God, but you've been refreshed by each other. And there's another level of intimacy that you achieve. So now you can relay that to others who may be struggling in their marriage.
Now, you mentioned the It Takes 3 conference. For those of you that are viewing this, you're probably wondering when is that next conference taking place. Tune in to, again, their website, and more information will be available to you for that conference. In fact, I believe it's coming up for you guys.
I think it's in August.
In June, August? Yeah. All right, tune in and get some more information on that. We'd love to have you be a part of that experience. Let me ask you this. You've mentioned balance, and you've talked about it in the context of certainly having leisure time aside from play. We know that's valuable. My wife and I, in fact, we share the same values in that. I feel as though many relationships today, however, aren't taking the date night experience of importance. We've allowed everything else on the outskirts to consume us. Do you find that the absence of that, or have you ever found that the absence of that, having that balance, has caused more stress, challenges in the relationship?
Yes, because when you don't take time to engage your partner in a way that she knows that I'm just interested in what she wants to say or wants to do or what's on her mind, and vice versa, then it can open the door for conflict to come in. You know, she may begin to get the feeling that, well, you know, he's not paying any attention to me, or he's not interested in how I'm feeling about this or how I'm feeling about that. So again, it's a time to just reconnect. And even in that, sometimes what we do, we've made a practice of this, we take baths together. You know, and what happens is God,
I love that. I love
yes. It's interesting because the Lord showed me, he continues to show me different things during those times, because this is a time where she can open up. And I just sit and listen. You know, there's been times when she's just been talking about maybe something that's happened in the past or whatever, and then the Lord will speak to my spirit and say, that's why she does what she does. You know, maybe it's a situation where I've been asking God, okay, Lord, I don't understand, you know, why she does this when she does it, or why she says this thing at this particular time or a certain time all the time. But then you taking that bath together
yes.
when the walls come down,
right.
everything is quiet,
right.
you know, everything is serene. So she opens up and she just begins to talk, you know, and I'm listening, and God said, okay, that's it right there. That's what I've been trying to show you. So now what it does, it opens the door for me to, first of all, to allow me to see it, and then it allows me the opportunity to become an intercessor in that situation in order to make that situation better, not only for her, but
right.
for me also.
Wow. Now, turning the tables a little bit, and you both have children, stepchildren. How does that extended family play into your relationship, and also the in-laws? How do you work that out so they don't become outlaws?
Well, me being a mother of 2 sons, my husband does not have any children. It was very challenging in the beginning, and having children, and your children is used to having you to yourself, and when a man come into the home, it can become very challenging, and coming into a place of understanding, you know, your role as a wife and your position as a wife. Children do not understand that that what your husband says is priority over what they say. It can be very challenging when my husband and I had to confront a situation with my son, my youngest son. He was very rebellious, and the first thing he said to me, well, Mom, you're taking him over me. No, it's not that I'm actually taking him over you. It's just that he runs this household, and you're not going to trump what he says. It's either you're going to come up into alignment with what our priorities here in this home, or different situations has to change. It can be hard, but you have to, me as a wife, you know, and a wife that is submitted up under her husband, I have to go by what God tells me to do when it comes to that, and have to just continue to be an example to my children, to let them know I love you, but what he says goes. Because it's something that Pastor tells us all the time. Children, you know, what they're
the expendable part of the
yes.
relationship.
Wow.
Because they grow up to lead.
They
yes.
grow up
yes.
to lead. And I tell my kids all the time, because by me being a single mom for so long, you know, it's hard to see another man come into your home, you know, and they feel that man is taking your place. You know, but I have to make them understand is that when you're gone, it's
right.
only him
right.
and I.
Wow. Yes.
You know. Go ahead.
Another thing is you have to understand during that time, we had just given our life to the Lord, so we're just making a transition
wow.
out of that lifestyle where we were doing whatever, and now we're trying to line ourselves up with the will and the Word of God.
Yes.
So this was a challenge to him. You know, because he wasn't used to this at that time.
Okay.
So when I come in, we get saved, we begin to bring these mass changes, you know, plus he's in that stage where he's a teen already, so he's already
yes.
in that rebellious stage. So then you got all these factors working together.
Right.
Now the good thing about that is that she was in agreement with what we were trying to do. Sometimes you have an instance, situation where one parent is on the side of the kid, and then they got the spouse, you know, out in left field somewhere. But the thing about it was, and what was a good thing is, we were on the same page. You know, when he would come to us about certain things, we would have already been discussed it. So when you come, you can't come to me and I tell you one thing, then you go to her and she tell you something different. We were always one when it came to that, and that posed a challenge for him. You know, because again, in that rebellious stage, you try to be controlling and manipulating with your parents and so forth, and you're trying to get one to play against the other and so on and so forth, but we weren't having it, you know, and it posed a serious challenge for him, which ended up in, you know, a conflict, you know, and at that point had to make a decision, you know.
Well, Pastor Eddie, so thank you so much for sharing that with us. When we get back, we're going to ask a serious question on Ephesians chapter 5. Gail, you just mentioned being submissive to your husband in that regard. I would love for you both to express what you mean by that with our audience. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.